They never cut someone off suddenly. The world thinks Sigma empaths disappear without warning, but the truth is far quieter, far more emotional, and far more human. Long before they walk away, they feel a shift inside them, a deep, unmistakable pull that something is no longer safe, no longer honest, no longer aligned with who they are becoming. It happens in silence, a tightening in the chest, a sudden clarity in their intuition, a calm realization that the connection they once protected is now costing them more than it gives. They don't shout. They don't fight. They don't explain. They simply feel the truth, and once they feel it, everything changes. This moment is powerful because it's the exact second they stop hoping for potential and start seeing reality. They notice the emotional distance, the mismatched effort, the subtle disrespect others pretend not to see. Their body reacts before their mind speaks. Their empathy dims. Their energy withdraws. Their boundaries rise. And for the first time, they look at the relationship without the fog of loyalty or emotion. That's when the final shift happens. The realization that staying would damage them more than leaving ever could. From that moment on, the goodbye has already begun inside them, long before anyone else notices. Before we go deeper, I want to know something from you. Have you ever felt this exact shift? That quiet moment when your soul knows it's time to walk away? Tell me in the comments and write "cut" if you're watching this to the end. Subscribe to Brainy Empath so you never miss the truths most people feel but never say out loud. They feel a sudden emotional disconnect that their intuition refuses to ignore. For a Sigma empath, the moment before cutting someone off never begins with anger. It begins with absence. Not the physical kind, but the emotional kind. The kind that slips in quietly like a shadow across the heart. One day, without warning, they feel something they cannot explain. A soft but undeniable distance forming between them and the other person. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's a quiet knowing. Their intuition, that inner compass that has never failed them, starts nudging, whispering, tightening. Conversations feel heavier. The connection feels thinner. The warmth they once offered so naturally no longer flows the same way. It's as if their soul begins stepping back before their mind even understands why. This emotional disconnect is not a choice, it's a reaction, a deep internal response to a shift they can sense but not yet articulate. They start noticing micro moments that feel off, inconsistencies that didn't bother them before, energy that once felt familiar, now feeling slightly foreign. Their intuition begins connecting dots in the background, building clarity from fragments. Something doesn't match. Something isn't honest. Something is draining instead of nourishing. And once they feel this disconnect, they can't unfeel it. It becomes a constant hum beneath the surface, an emotional warning siren wrapped in silence. What makes this moment so powerful is how natural the withdrawal feels. They don't force distance. It simply happens. They no longer feel safe enough to be vulnerable, so they stop opening up. They no longer feel aligned with the connection, so they stop investing. They no longer feel emotionally anchored, so they drift inward. The person on the other side usually doesn't notice the shift at first because Sigma empaths don't announce their inner changes. But internally, the empath is already recalibrating, already preparing themselves for the possibility that this relationship has reached its limit. Their intuition refuses to ignore what their emotions have already confirmed. And once the disconnect settles in, something irreversible begins. The empath stops hoping the connection will return to what it was. They begin seeing the other person clearly, without idealization or excuses. The emotional thread that once bound them starts dissolving, softly and silently. And in that moment, even though they may not have walked away yet, the Sigma empath has already taken the first step out the door, guided not by anger, but by truth. Their body starts reacting before their mind, signaling tension, danger, or dishonesty. For Sigma empaths, the truth often appears in the body long before it arrives in the mind. It begins subtly, a tightening in the chest, a sudden heaviness in the air, an instinctive shift in their breathing whenever the other person enters the room or speaks in a certain tone. Their body becomes the first alarm system, whispering warnings through sensations they can't yet translate into words. It isn't drama. It isn't imagination. It's their nervous system detecting microsignals, energetic shifts, and emotional inconsistencies long before the conscious mind catches up. They might feel unsettled around someone they used to feel comforted by, or tense in conversations that once felt effortless. A simple interaction begins to drain instead of nourish. These physical reactions are not random. They are messages, and Sigma empaths feel them deeply. This bodily awareness grows stronger the more the connection strains. Their intuition plugs into their senses with uncanny precision, amplifying details others overlook. A slight change in someone's voice tone triggers unease. A forced smile creates a knot in their stomach. A delayed answer makes their shoulders stiffen. It's the body telling them something here is not matching up. Before their mind can analyze behavior or rationalize excuses, their body has already recognized the emotional truth beneath the surface. And the more honest the body becomes, the more difficult it is for the empath to ignore. They may try to dismiss it at first, hoping it's just stress or fatigue, but the signals persist. Subtle at first, then sharper, then impossible to misread. Eventually, the body becomes a compass pointing toward what the empath has tried to acknowledging. It senses lies even when words sound polished. It senses emotional danger even when behavior appears gentle. It senses tension in places where harmony once lived. These physical reactions are the empath's greatest protection, and they've learned, often through painful lessons, that ignoring them only leads to deeper wounds later. So when their body reacts, they listen. They slow down. They observe. They begin to piece together the emotional puzzle their intuition has already solved. By the time their mind finally catches up, the Sigma empath already knows the truth. Something in the connection is no longer safe, authentic, or aligned. Their body felt it first. Reality simply confirmed it later. And this is often the moment the countdown to letting go quietly begins. They notice the effort becoming one-sided and emotionally draining. Sigma empaths never walk away because of a single argument or a minor disappointment. What truly breaks them is the slow, quiet realization that they are the only ones holding the connection together. They begin to notice the imbalance in small, almost invisible moments. They're always the one initiating conversations, always the one checking in, always the emotional anchor, while the other person simply receives. At first, they brush it off, telling themselves the other person is busy, distracted, or going through something. But over time, the emotional weight becomes undeniable. Every message feels heavier to send. Every interaction feels like effort with no return. The connection that once flowed naturally now feels like they're carrying it alone. This shift is not dramatic, it's draining. The empath feels it in the silence between replies, in the absence of genuine curiosity, in the fading warmth that used to come effortlessly. They start to sense how their emotional generosity is being consumed without care, how their patience is being stretched thin, how they are giving more than anyone ever notices. And once they notice this imbalance, they cannot unsee it. The one-sided effort becomes a mirror reflecting back the truth they've avoided. The other person is comfortable letting them do all the emotional labor. What felt like connection now feels like responsibility. What felt like closeness now feels like exhaustion. The emotional drain deepens because Sigma empaths don't love halfway. When they care, they give fully attention, understanding, presence, empathy. But when this energy is met with complacency or indifference, something inside them begins to fracture. They start asking themselves unspoken questions. Why am I the only one showing up? Why does this connection feel like work? Why am I pouring into someone who barely notices when I pull back? These questions don't come from insecurity, they come from clarity. The empath realizes they are investing in something that is no longer investing in them. Slowly, their effort fades, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. They stop overextending. They stop giving without receiving. They stop offering emotional nourishment to someone who has forgotten the value of it. And once the Sigma empath reaches this point, it becomes the beginning of the end, not because they stopped caring, but because they finally recognized the cost of caring alone. Their empathy shuts down and shifts into observation instead of connection. For a Sigma empath, empathy is their natural language, warm, intuitive, and deeply attuned to the emotions of those they care about. But the moment they begin withdrawing from someone, that empathy doesn't disappear, it transforms. Instead of feeling with the person, they start watching them. Instead of absorbing emotion, they analyze it. Instead of connecting, they observe. This shift is subtle but powerful, and it marks the exact moment the relationship begins crossing the line from intimate to distant. Their heart doesn't lean in anymore, it steps back to study. The emotional bridge between them and the other person becomes thin, fragile, and quiet. This happens because empathy without trust becomes a liability. When the Sigma empath begins sensing inconsistencies, emotional distance, or dishonesty, their nervous system automatically reduces emotional engagement to protect them. They stop internalizing the other person's mood. They stop matching their energy. They stop feeling responsible for their emotional comfort. What replaces the warmth is a calm, sharpened awareness, one that notices everything while revealing nothing. They pay attention to tone, to body language, to timing, to the energy behind words. And in that state, nothing slips past them. They see truths the other person hoped to hide. They see motives beneath the surface. They see every emotional detail they were once too caring to question. This observational mode gives them the clarity they need to understand the real state of the relationship. When their empathy shifts outward instead of inward, they no longer feel pulled to fix, soothe, or explain. They study patterns without trying to change them. They watch reactions without emotionally participating. They evaluate the connection as if they are already halfway gone. And for the first time, they see the relationship not as they hoped it would be, but exactly as it is. This clarity is both empowering and heartbreaking. What makes this moment decisive is how peaceful it feels. There's no anger, no dramatic confrontation, just a deep understanding that the emotional bond has already loosened. And once their empathy has shifted into observation, the Sigma empath is no longer invested in saving the connection. They are gathering the final pieces of truth they need before walking away, quietly, cleanly, and without ever looking back. They stop sharing their inner world because the space no longer feels safe. When a Sigma empath begins cutting someone off internally, one of the first signs is silence. Not the cold kind, but the protective kind. They stop volunteering their thoughts, their fears, their dreams, their small daily truths. They stop opening the door to the inner world they once shared freely. This is not done out of spite or punishment. It is instinct, an internal shift that tells them, this person is no longer a safe place. And once that message lands, the empath's openness closes almost instantly. Conversations become lighter, shorter, practical. The depth disappears. The emotional richness they once offered is replaced with polite distance because their intuition no longer trusts the connection to hold something fragile. This withdrawal is subtle but profoundly revealing. The Sigma empath doesn't announce it the way others might. They don't say, "I don't trust you anymore." They simply stop giving you the parts of themselves that require trust to share. They move from vulnerable to reserved, from expressive to private. Their laughter becomes softer, their disclosures shorter, their stories fewer. The person they're pulling away from may feel something as different, but they can't explain what or why. Only the empath knows. The emotional safety they once felt has been replaced by uncertainty. And the inner world of a Sigma empath is sacred. Once that world feels threatened, the gates close with absolute finality. What makes this so powerful is how natural the change feels on their end. There's no internal debate, no guilt, no negotiation. The moment the space feels unsafe, they protect themselves automatically. Their heart doesn't lean forward anymore, it leans back. Their words become measured, intentional, selective. They stop sharing details that reveal emotional vulnerability. They stop asking deep questions that once created connection. They stop extending emotional labor to someone who no longer earns it. This silence becomes their armor, and their inner world becomes inaccessible. By the time they reach this stage, the relationship is already dissolving inside them. The bond that once felt open and warm now feels closed and cold, not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped feeling safe. And when a Sigma empath stops sharing their inner world, it is only a matter of time before they stop offering their presence altogether. This is the quiet beginning of the end, a silent retreat that confirms one truth: the goodbye has already started. They sense the exact moment someone's intentions change, even if nothing is said. Sigma empaths don't rely on words to understand people, they rely on energy. And when someone's intentions shift, even slightly, they feel it instantly. It might be the way someone's eyes avoid theirs for a second too long, the way enthusiasm fades from a conversation, or the sudden tightness in someone's tone when they speak. Nothing obvious, nothing dramatic. Yet the empath feels the change as clearly as if the person announced it out loud. Their intuition becomes a finely tuned radar, picking up emotional frequencies others can't detect. What once felt warm now feels uncertain. What once felt sincere now feels calculated. And once they sense this shift, the empath stops seeing the person they used to trust. They start seeing the truth behind the mask. This moment is internal, quiet, and irreversible. Sigma empaths notice the small disconnects most people overlook: delayed replies, forced smiles, mismatched words and emotions, a subtle shift in energy that tells them the other person is no longer aligned, no longer invested, or no longer honest. They don't need explanations. Their intuition translates these microsignals into understanding without effort. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Their mind might still be catching up, but their body already knows. Something changed, and not in their favor. These shifts are the earliest warning signs, and Sigma empaths never ignore them. Experience has taught them that emotional truth always reveals itself through energy before it appears in action. So when they feel that someone's intentions darken, weaken, or drift, they don't confront it, they observe it. They gather emotional data. They watch how the person behaves under silence, pressure, or distance. They pay attention to how the person chooses convenience over connection, how they stop showing care in the little moments, how they reveal priorities without realizing it. And through this, the empath confirms the shift they sensed was real. What makes this ability so powerful and so painful is that Sigma empaths often realize the relationship was ending before the other person even knows they've changed. They sense emotional withdrawal before it becomes visible. They detect hidden resentment or fading interest long before it becomes a conversation. They feel betrayal coming before it happens. And once they recognize the shift in intention, their own energy shifts too. They begin detaching, protecting, preparing. Because when a Sigma empath knows someone's intention has changed, the heart doesn't hold on. It lets go quietly, long before the goodbye is spoken. They detach internally long before they pull away physically. When a Sigma empath is nearing the end of a connection, the first goodbye happens inside them, long before they ever say a word or take a visible step back. This internal detachment is quiet, deliberate, and almost invisible to the outside world. They no longer imagine a future with the person. They no longer replay conversations hoping to fix what went wrong. They no longer feel that emotional pull that once kept them invested. Instead, something inside them loosens, softens, releases. It's not anger. It's not disappointment. It's acceptance. Their heart begins to retreat into a space that feels safer, smaller, more protected. The connection that once felt like a living energy now feels like a memory gradually fading from its edges. This internal detachment happens because the Sigma empath processes endings emotionally before they process them physically. They sit with the truth in silence. They reflect on the hidden signals, the inconsistencies, the subtle betrayals, the emotional imbalances. They replay moments not with longing, but with clarity. And once they understand that the relationship no longer aligns with their emotional safety or inner peace, something inside them shuts off, cleanly, quietly, completely. The person they are walking away from doesn't notice at first because the empath is still present, still polite, still functional. But the connection is no longer alive inside them. During this stage, their responses become shorter, but not cold. Their presence becomes lighter, but not hostile. They no longer give emotional depth, only surface-level interaction. They stop initiating conversations. They stop sharing personal thoughts. They stop offering the emotional warmth that once made the relationship feel alive. The difference is subtle, but unmistakable to anyone paying attention. They are still there, but the bond is not. By the time the Sigma empath physically pulls away, emotionally, they have already left. There is no internal conflict, no dramatic outburst, no hesitation. The decision was made long before the action. They detach with a grace that others often misinterpret as indifference, but it is not indifference, it is self-preservation. They leave without bitterness because they already mourned the connection in silence. And once they detach internally, nothing can bring them back. The relationship ends not when they walk away, but when their heart no longer feels the need to stay. They realize their peace costs too much to stay, making leaving feel inevitable rather than emotional. There comes a moment when a Sigma empath stops trying to fix, understand, or endure, and starts asking one quiet, life-altering question: what is this costing my peace? That question changes everything. Suddenly, the late-night overthinking, the emotional exhaustion, the constant adjustment of their own needs, the feeling of walking on emotional eggshells, all of it becomes visible. They realize they've been paying for the connection with their mental clarity, their emotional stability, their self-worth. And once a Sigma empath becomes aware of the cost, staying no longer feels like loyalty. It feels like self-betrayal. The weight shifts. Their perspective shifts. The bond that felt hard to let go now feels impossible to hold on to. This realization does not strike like lightning. It arrives like dawn. Soft, but undeniable. The empath begins to see how much energy they've been using to maintain a relationship that gives them little in return. How many times they've silenced their intuition for the sake of harmony. How often they've chosen understanding over being understood. The emotional math stops adding up. The gap between what they give and what they receive becomes too painful to ignore. And in that clarity, leaving stops feeling like a dramatic decision. It feels like the only path back to themselves. It becomes less about the other person and more about reclaiming the peace they sacrificed trying to keep the connection alive. The most powerful part of this moment is how unemotional it becomes. The Sigma empath does not explode, accuse, or crumble. The tears have already been shed privately, long before the goodbye. What remains is a deep, grounded certainty that their well-being matters more than someone else's comfort. This is when leaving becomes inevitable, not because they're angry, but because staying would cost too much of their spirit. Their heart starts choosing itself, maybe for the first time in the entire relationship. And once that inner alignment happens, the decision is already made. By the time they walk away, their peace has already returned. There is no guilt, no regret, no longing for what might have been. They understand that protecting their inner world is not selfish, it's survival. And anyone who requires them to abandon their peace is someone they were never meant to stay with. Once a Sigma empath reaches this point, leaving becomes the most natural, self-loving choice they could make, quiet, firm, and final. When a Sigma empath reaches this point, the goodbye isn't loud, angry, or dramatic. It's calm. It's the kind of ending that comes from clarity, not chaos. They don't leave to teach a lesson. They leave because they finally learned theirs. And anyone who has ever been on the receiving end of a Sigma empath's silence knows one thing. Once their peace matters more than the connection, there is no returning to the way things were. Their absence becomes the closure, their distance becomes the answer, and their transformation becomes the part of the story no one saw coming. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever walked away quietly because staying was costing you too much? Tell me in the comments and write peace if you stayed with this video until the end. And don't forget to subscribe to Brainy Empath so you never miss the truths that most people feel, but only Sigma empaths understand.